The night Emma Carter confessed her secret dream about her mafia boss, she thought she was safe. Just a tired maid, alone in a big kitchen, sharing something embarrassing with the only person she trusted. She had no idea Luca Zanetti was standing just beyond the doorway, listening to every word, and deciding what to do with it. The kitchen of the Zanetti mansion was the only place that ever felt normal to Emma. The rest of the house was cold floors, heavy doors, silent hallways, and men in dark suits who rarely smiled. Cameras watched every corner outside. Expensive cars came and went. People in the neighborhood lowered their voices when they said the name Zanetti. Power, fear, control. Inside the kitchen there was light and warmth, the smell of fresh bread, the quiet hum of the refrigerator, pans cooling on the stove. It was the only room where Emma could breathe without feeling like she was being watched. That Sunday night the mansion was unusually quiet. No guests, no late meetings, no raised voices behind closed doors. The security team rotated through their shifts upstairs and outside. Most of the staff had already gone home. Only Emma and Helen Lawson had stayed to finish the preparations for the next morning. Emma stood at the long marble counter, tying the white apron around her waist. Her red and white uniform was crisp. Her dark hair was pulled into a low bun, a few strands loose around her face. In the reflection of the oven door, she looked like every movie made in every rich house story. Invisible, replaceable, forgettable. But her heart was beating too fast for someone who was just slicing fruit. Helen, almost 60, stirred a pot of oatmeal on the industrial stove. Her gray hair was pinned in a firm bun, her posture straight. The same uniform, but on her it looked like armor. In the kitchen, Helen was the boss. "You're quiet tonight," Helen said without looking back. "That's never a good sign." Emma kept cutting strawberries. The knife moved in smooth strokes, but her focus was far away. "I'm fine," she muttered. "Just tired." "You can lie to the security cameras, sweetheart," Helen replied. "Not to me." Emma pressed her lips together. Helen turned off the burner, placed the spoon aside, and turned to face her. She studied Emma for a few seconds. Clear, sharp eyes, the kind that saw what people didn't say. "You've been jumpy all day," Helen said, "since he walked down the hallway this morning." Emma almost dropped a strawberry. "Who?" Helen lifted an eyebrow. "Don't play dumb with me. The boss." "Luca Zanetti." The name alone made Emma's stomach tighten. She tried to pretend she didn't care, but her body always betrayed her. "He's my employer," she said too quickly. "That's all." Helen let out a short laugh. "Right. That's why you turn red every time he says your name." Emma set the knife down, annoyed and embarrassed. "Helen, I've worked in this house longer than he's been alive." Helen went on, moving closer to the counter. "I've seen maids come and go. I've seen girlfriends, wives, lawyers, enemies, partners. I know the look of a girl in trouble. I'm not in trouble." "You are," Helen said quietly. "You just don't know it yet." Emma sighed and pressed her hands against the cool marble. The digital clock on the microwave read 10:23 p.m. Upstairs, the lights on the main floor were mostly off. Down here, kitchen, laundry, staff rooms, it was another world. "It's stupid," Emma said at last. "It's nothing. If it was nothing, you wouldn't be shaking like that." Emma glanced at her hands. They were trembling slightly. Helen was right. She had tried to forget since the moment she woke up that morning, heart racing, face burning, sheets twisted around her legs. She had taken a cold shower, made her bed, made coffee, worked all day. But the images kept returning every time she blinked. Luca Zanetti in the library, his hand on her waist, his mouth near her ear, the weight of his body pressing her against the shelves. It was just a dream, but it didn't feel like just a dream. "You're going to laugh," Emma murmured. "Try me." Helen leaned her hip against the counter and crossed her arms, waiting. The kitchen went quiet except for the low hum of the refrigerator. Emma took a deep breath. "I had a dream," she began. "About him." Helen didn't move. "What kind of dream?" she asked slowly. Emma's face grew hot. "Not the kind you tell your pastor." Helen's eyes widened. Then she let out a surprised, quick laugh. Oh, oh, now I understand why you've been acting like a ghost all day. Helen, don't make it worse. I'm not making it worse. I'm just enjoying the moment. Go on. If you keep that inside, you're going to explode. Tell me. Emma hesitated. This was insane. Saying it out loud would make it real. But Helen was the only person she trusted in this house. She had no family in the city, no friends outside, just this kitchen, just this woman. Fine, she whispered, but you cannot repeat this, ever, not to anyone. Helen lifted her right hand like she was taking an oath. I swear. Emma glanced toward the door out of pure habit. The kitchen door was almost closed, leaving only a thin gap. On the other side was a small hallway that led to the back service stairs. Silence. She didn't know a shadow was standing just outside that gap. A tall figure dressed in black, breathing quietly so the floor wouldn't creak. It felt so real. Emma said, turning back to Helen. In the dream, I was in the library. It was late, like now. Everyone was asleep. I was putting books back on the shelves because, I don't know, dreams never make sense. Helen listened, expression serious now. I was on the ladder, Emma continued, reaching for the top shelf, and then I felt someone behind me. I didn't see his face at first, but I knew it was him. I could recognize his presence anywhere. The words started coming faster now. Once she started, she couldn't stop. I felt his hand on my ankle, holding the ladder steady. She said quietly. He told me to come down. His voice was lower than usual. I climbed down step by step. When I turned around, he was standing so close I could feel his breath. Helen swallowed, drawn in despite herself. On the other side of the door, so did Luca. He had come downstairs for a glass of water and a few minutes of silence away from the men talking numbers in the game room. He was used to moving through his own house without being noticed. The staff knew not to approach unless called. When he heard voices in the kitchen, he was going to turn back. Then he heard his own name, Zanetti, in Emma's voice. He stopped. What was he like? Helen whispered, pulling Luca back to the present. Emma let out a nervous, shaky laugh. Different, she admitted. Softer, I guess. Less terrifying. Luca rested his hand on the doorframe, his jaw tightening. Terrifying. That was how everyone else saw him. It shouldn't have surprised him, but hearing it in that quiet hallway felt heavier than usual. He stepped closer, Emma said, looking down at the cutting board like she could see the scene there. He put one hand on the shelf behind me, the other on my waist. I was trapped between him and the books. He looked down at me and said my name. The way he said it. She closed her eyes for a second. It felt like he owned it. Helen let out a slow breath. Wow. I told you this was stupid. It's not stupid, it's dangerous. Big difference. Emma's voice dropped even lower. In the dream he told me I'd been distracting him, she said. That he noticed every time I walked into a room. That he knew I was trying not to look at him. And then he asked if I ever thought about him when I wasn't working. Helen tilted her head. And did you? Emma looked away. I didn't answer in the dream, she confessed. I couldn't. He just smirked, like he already knew. And then he said, You work for me, Emma, but tonight I want you to forget that. Helen stared at her. That is very specific, she said slowly. Dreams usually aren't that detailed. Emma gave a helpless shrug, embarrassed. It gets worse. I doubt that, Helen muttered. But go on. Emma's heart was racing. She didn't understand why she kept talking, but the words wouldn't stop. He leaned down, she whispered. His mouth was right next to my ear. He told me I'd been very good at pretending I didn't want him. Then he said... She stopped. Her face burned. You're really going to make me beg? Helen asked, half amused, half scandalized. Emma covered her face for a moment, then lowered her hands. He said, Tell me to stop, and I will. But if you don't, I'm going to kiss you until you forget every rule in this house. Helen's eyes went wide. That's not just a dream, honey. That's a whole script. I know, Emma groaned. And in the dream I didn't tell him to stop. Silence filled the kitchen. So he kissed you? Helen asked quietly. Emma nodded, throat tight. Yeah, against the shelves, she said. His hands on my waist and my back like he was afraid I'd pull away. It was intense. I woke up shaking. She laughed weakly. I literally checked my room to make sure he wasn't actually there. Helen laughed with her, then turned serious again. How did you feel when you woke up? Emma thought about it. She could have said ashamed, scared, confused. All of that was true, but there was something else too. Sad, she admitted, because it wasn't real. On the other side of the door, Luca felt something in his chest tighten in a way he didn't expect. He hadn't asked to hear any of that. He hadn't planned it. He could have stepped back, walked up the stairs, pretended nothing happened. That would have been the smart move. But with every sentence, every detail from her mouth, his view of her shifted. He saw Emma in the library, looking up at him, her lips parted, the way she always lowered her eyes when he passed by, the way she gripped the tray with both hands when she served drinks at dinners. He had always noticed Emma, but noticed was a weak word. He had pushed the feeling aside, buried it under numbers and danger and business. Until now. It doesn't matter, Emma said quickly, as if trying to erase everything. It was just my stupid brain mixing things. I see him walking around all day, everyone's scared of him, and then I dream something crazy because my life is boring and my love life doesn't exist. It matters if it's messing with your heart, Helen said calmly. You know what kind of man he is, Emma. Men like Luca Zanetti don't do romance. They do orders, they do threats, they do control. I know. Then promise me one thing. Emma looked up. What? That you will never ever let him know about that dream. Emma laughed, almost hysterical with relief. Are you kidding? I would rather move to Alaska and live with penguins. There are no penguins in Alaska. Exactly. That's how serious I am. Helen shook her head, but a smile tugged at her mouth. Good, she said. Because if a man like him ever found out you thought about him like that. She didn't finish the sentence. She didn't have to. Emma saw the picture in her mind. Luca laughing at her, calling her foolish, firing her, maybe worse. She felt sick. It would ruin everything, Emma whispered. Helen pushed away from the counter and went back toward the stove to put the pot away. Finish the strawberries and go to bed, she said. Tomorrow is Monday. New schedule, new guests, new chaos. You'll need your energy. Emma nodded. She picked up the knife again and tried to focus on the rhythm of cutting. But her heart was still racing, and now it wasn't just because of the dream. It was because she had said it out loud. She had taken something private and risky and fragile and let it hang in the air between them. She had no idea there weren't just two people in that conversation. There were three. Luca stepped back from the door slowly, making sure the floor didn't creak. His face was still serious, but his eyes held a different light now, a mix of curiosity and decision. He moved up the stairs in silence, each step measured. In the main hallway, two men in black suits nodded to him. He gave them a short look and continued to his office. He closed the door, leaned his back against it for a brief moment, and closed his eyes. Emma in the library, her body pressed to the shelves, her saying his name like that. Tell me to stop, and I will. He opened his eyes and crossed the room to the small bar in the corner. He took a glass, then changed his mind, and put it back down without pouring anything. For once, he didn't want alcohol to blur his thoughts. He didn't like surprises. He didn't like losing control. He had built his life on always knowing more than everyone else in the room, what they wanted, what they feared, what they owed. He always knew what people thought of him. Fear, respect, interest, sometimes hatred, almost never affection, never desire like that. A maid. A girl who scrubbed floors, cleaned bathrooms, and sliced fruit late at night. A girl who dreamed of him, not of his position, not of what he could give her, but of his hands on her waist and his mouth on her neck. He should ignore it. He knew he should. But he couldn't stop the small, dangerous smile that pulled at his lips. Interesting, he murmured to himself. Downstairs, Emma turned off the kitchen lights, told Helen good night, and walked along the narrow hallway to the staff rooms. She changed quickly, lay down on her small bed, stared at the dark ceiling, and tried to pray she would never dream of Luca Zanetti again. On the other side of the house, in the main bedroom, Luca sat in the armchair by the window, staring at the darkness outside. His hands rested on the armrests, fingers relaxed, but his mind far from calm. He replayed every time Emma had crossed his path, the polite way she said, "Good morning, sir." The way she always stepped slightly aside in the hallway so he and his men could pass. The quick smile she gave Helen when she thought no one important was watching. Maybe he had noticed more than he wanted to admit. Maybe the dream wasn't just in her head. One thing, however, was clear. After that night, pretending he didn't know anything would be impossible. The question wasn't whether he had heard. The question was what a man like Luca Zanetti did when he found out the most innocent woman in his house had the kind of dream that could destroy both of them. He sat forward, elbows on his knees, hands clasped. The next morning, when Emma walked into the dining room with the breakfast tray, he would have to choose. Treat everything like it never happened, or start a game no one in that mansion was ready to play. And Luca was not known for walking away when he saw an opportunity. Not in business, and not, especially not now, with the heart of a woman he had just realized he wanted more than he should. The next morning felt nothing like morning. Emma barely slept. Every time she closed her eyes, the same moment played again and again. The doorway, his shadow, the way Luca Zanetti looked at her like he already knew every piece of that dream. She woke up before her alarm, threw water on her face, fixed her bun 3 times, changed uniforms twice, and still didn't feel ready. How do you act normal in front of a man who heard you describe kissing him in a library? You don't. You survive. When the wall clock in the staff hall hit 6:30 a.m., she picked up the breakfast tray and walked toward the dining room. Her hands were steady, but only because she clenched them so tightly around the china that her knuckles had gone white. The hallway felt longer than usual, the mansion quieter, every sound amplified. Her footsteps, her breaths, the soft clinking of the silverware on the tray. At the dining room door, she hesitated. He'll be calm, she told herself. He's your boss. He won't say anything. Then she remembered the look he gave her last night. No, Luca Zanetti wouldn't pretend nothing happened. She took a deep breath, lifted her chin the way Helen always told her, and pushed the door open. The room was empty. Relief washed through her so fast she almost sagged. She set the tray down on the long wooden table and began arranging the plates, keeping her motions quiet and efficient. Footsteps, deep, slow, unmistakable. Emma froze with a bowl of fruit in her hands. He walked in. Luca Zanetti didn't simply enter a room, he filled it. His presence shifted the air, pressed against her skin, made her heart beat faster before she even looked at him. He wore a fitted black shirt, sleeves rolled up to his forearms, and dark slacks. His hair looked slightly damp, like he'd just come from the shower. He moved with a calm that was almost predatory. "Good morning, Emma." His voice was deeper than usual. She felt it more than heard it. Good morning, sir." She kept her eyes on the table, trying to place the fruit bowl down without dropping it. It wobbled once, then steadied. He came closer. Every instinct in her body screamed, "Don't look up." She looked up. Mistake. He wasn't looking at the food, he wasn't looking at the table, he was looking at her, and not the way a boss looks at an employee. "Did you sleep well?" he asked. Sure," she lied. "Did you?" A slow, unreadable smile touched his mouth. "I did," he said. "I had interesting thoughts before bed." Her breath caught. He was playing with her, just like in the dream. Emma took a tiny step back without meaning to. Luca noticed. His eyes dropped to her shoes for a second, then lifted again. "You're nervous," he said softly. Her pulse jumped. "I'm not." "You are," he corrected, a fraction of amusement in his tone. "And I'm wondering why." She swallowed. "Maybe because you were standing in the kitchen doorway last night." There. It slipped out. She hadn't meant to say it, but once the words left her mouth, she couldn't pull them back. Luca raised one eyebrow. So you did see me. I saw you, she whispered. At the last second. And did that bother you? She stared at him. You heard everything. I did. It wasn't an apology. It wasn't a denial. He said it like a fact, like something that changed the rules of the room, because it had. Emma felt the panic rising in her throat. I'm sorry, she rushed out. It didn't mean anything. It was just a dream, and I was embarrassed. And Helen made me talk and... Emma. He said her name quietly but firmly, and she stopped talking instantly. Luca stepped closer, slow enough that she could have stepped away, but she didn't. She stood still, tray behind her, back straight, breath unsteady. He stopped an arm's length away. That dream, he said, wasn't something to apologize for. Her eyes widened. What? It was honest, he added. More honest than most people ever dare to be around me. She didn't understand. Not at all. You're not angry? She whispered. Luca's eyes softened, just barely. No, he said. If anything, I'm curious. Curious. The words slid down her spine like heat. Emma swallowed hard. Curious about what exactly? He didn't hesitate. How much of it? He said quietly. You really wanted. Her knees nearly buckled. I didn't. She couldn't think, couldn't breathe. It was just my mind making things up. I don't want. She shut her eyes. Sir, please forget it happened. Silence. When he spoke again, his voice dropped lower. Emma. She opened her eyes. You asked for honesty last night, even if you didn't mean to. Her heart pounded painfully. So here's mine, he said. I haven't been able to stop thinking about you since you started working here. Her breath hitched. I ignored it. He continued. I told myself it was nothing. But then last night happened. And now? He exhaled slowly. Now I'm trying to understand what this is. Emma felt dizzy. I'm no one, she whispered. I clean your floors. I'm not part of your world. That's the part I like most. She blinked. What? You don't want anything from me, he said. You don't use me. You don't fear me the way everyone else does. You look at me like I'm human. I look at you like you're going to fire me, she muttered helplessly. Something like amusement flashed in his eyes. Do you really think I would fire you for dreaming about me? Yes. No. The way he said it, firm, final, absolute, made her look up fast. He stepped even closer now. Too close. Close enough that she could smell the faint scent of his cologne. Warm, subtle, clean. I won't fire you, he said. I'm not letting you run away from this. This what? She whispered. This, he said, and his gaze dropped to her mouth for the briefest, most dangerous moment. Her stomach flipped. Footsteps echoed down the hall. Both of them froze. A guard approached the dining room door, paused, then knocked once. Boss, you're needed in the back office. Luca didn't take his eyes off her. 2 minutes, he said, voice steady. Yes, sir. The guard left. Emma stepped back as if she had been burned. Luca didn't stop her, but he watched every inch she retreated. We'll finish this later, he said quietly. Her heart skipped. Finish what? He didn't answer. He didn't need to. He turned toward the door, but paused before leaving. Oh, Emma? She looked up. Next time you have a dream about me, he said with a slow, deliberate glance, don't whisper it to Helen. Her mouth fell open. Tell me. And he walked out. Emma stood frozen, gripping the back of a chair, pulse hammering, legs trembling, because he wasn't joking, and he wasn't done. Not even close. But what did Luca want from her now? And how far was he willing to go to find out? Emma spent the next hour pretending to be invisible. It had always been easy before. She moved through the mansion like part of the furniture, quiet, efficient, unnoticed. But after that breakfast conversation, after his eyes on her and the words "tell me," invisibility felt impossible. She kept replaying it in her mind while she wiped the counters in the kitchen. I haven't been able to stop thinking about you since you started working here. Next time you have a dream about me, don't whisper it to Helen. Tell me, who talked like that? Certainly not normal, safe men. She scrubbed the same spot for so long that Helen finally reached out and took the sponge from her hand. Sweetheart, Helen said calmly, if you keep doing that, you're going to dig a hole through that counter. Emma blinked and looked down. The marble was already spotless. Sorry, she muttered. Let me guess, Helen went on. This has something to do with a certain man in a black shirt. Emma felt her face heat instantly. Oh, God. Helen slid the sponge into the sink, turned off the faucet, and folded her arms. All right, talk. You look like you're about to pass out. Emma exhaled slowly. He heard everything. I know he heard part of it, Helen said. I saw the man, I mean all of it. He said he did. Emma swallowed. And he didn't deny it. Helen's eyes widened. And then what? Did he yell? Say you were out of line? Send you home? Emma shook her head. He started asking questions. Helen stared at her. Of course he did. He wasn't angry, Emma said, still not quite believing it herself. He said he was curious. Curious, Helen repeated, like the word tasted wrong in her mouth. He asked how much of the dream I really wanted, Emma whispered. Helen closed her eyes for a second. Lord, give me patience. I panicked, Emma went on. I told him it was just my mind making things up, that I don't want anything. And he believed that. I don't know, Emma hesitated. Then he said, he hasn't been able to stop thinking about me since I started working here. The room went very quiet. For the first time since Emma had known her, Helen Lawson was speechless. He said that? The older woman asked finally. Emma nodded. And you're still alive? Yes. Helen pressed her fingers to her temples. Okay. All right. We have officially left the normal world. I told you it was stupid. It's not stupid. Helen snapped softly. It's dangerous. That's different. Emma, men like him don't just think about girls like us. When they notice you, it changes things, and not always in ways you can go back from. Emma shifted her weight and leaned back against the counter. I know who he is, she said quietly. I know what people say. I know what he does. Do you? Helen asked. Because you see the way he eats breakfast and the way he walks down the hallway. You don't see what happens when someone crosses him outside these walls. Emma looked down at her hands. He told me he wouldn't fire me, that he's not going to let me run away. Helen shook her head slowly. Of course he did. Does he think you're a kitten? What does that mean? It means, Helen said, that when a man like Luca Zanetti decides he wants something, he doesn't just ask. He surrounds it. He closes every exit. He makes sure that the thing he wants has nowhere else to go. Emma swallowed. I don't belong in his world. Maybe not, Helen agreed. But his world just noticed you. Footsteps echoed in the corridor. Emma tensed automatically, but this time it was only one of the younger maids coming to pick up a tray. The moment broke. Helen touched Emma's arm gently. I'm not saying he's going to hurt you, she added more softly. I've seen him protect people too. Staff even. But you need to be careful with your heart, Emma. When men like him change their minds, they don't do it gently. Emma nodded, even though she wasn't sure what to do with that warning. Her heart felt like it was already in his hands, whether he knew it or not. On the other side of the mansion, in a back office that most staff never entered, Luca sat at a smaller desk covered in folders and photos. Across from him stood Ethan Cole, his head of security. Ethan was in his mid-30s, short dark hair, sharp blue eyes, sleeves rolled up, gun holstered at his side. Calm, steady, the kind of man who noticed everything. There's been more movement from Dixon's people, Ethan said, tapping one of the photos with a finger. They've been seen twice near the Riverside warehouse and once near the Uptown restaurant. Too close, Luca said quietly. Too frequent, Ethan agreed. They're sending a message. Luca leaned back in his chair. His mind split, as it often did, in two directions at once: business and something else. Money and threats on one side, an image of a young woman in a red and white uniform on the other, standing in his dining room trying not to look at him. He forced his thoughts back to the present. "What kind of message?" he asked. "That they're not afraid to press into your territory," Ethan replied. "They want you to react. If you don't do anything, they get bolder. If you react hard, they claim you escalated first." "Caleb Dixon never does anything without a reason," Luca muttered. "He wants something specific." "Maybe," Ethan said. "Or maybe he's just stupid." Luca gave him a short look. Ethan raised one shoulder in a half shrug. "He's been sloppy lately," Ethan added. "We still keep our distance for now. Watch, track, gather details. Wait for him to make a mistake. Then we decide how big the response is." Luca nodded once. "Make sure the mansion stays locked down. I don't want any surprises here." Ethan hesitated. "You thinking about moving any of the family out of town for a few weeks?" "Not yet," Luca said. "The staff?" Luca's jaw tightened for a brief second. "Staff. Emma." He pictured her again, standing in the doorway of the dining room, fingers twisting the edge of her apron. "Not yet," he repeated. "But add another man to the night shift at the gate. Rotate cars more often. I don't want Dixon's people getting comfortable watching this place." "Got it," Ethan said. He started to turn away, then paused. "By the way," Ethan added, "the maid you asked about? Emma Carter? Clean record. Parents divorced, one younger brother. Moved here 2 years ago. No close ties in the city. She's been here 8 months, never late, no complaints. Keeps to herself. Staff likes her." Luca didn't react outwardly. He only nodded once, as if that information was as normal and practical as a weather report. "Anything else?" he asked. "You want anything more specific on her?" Ethan tried. "Or was that just a random background check?" Luca met his eyes. "If it were random, you wouldn't be asking." Ethan smiled slightly, but didn't push. "No," Luca said at last. "That's enough for now." "Understood." Ethan left, closing the office door quietly behind him. Luca sat alone for a few seconds, staring at the file on the desk with Emma's name printed on it. He shouldn't have asked Ethan to run her name. It wasn't like him to look twice at a maid, but he already had, and pretending otherwise would be a lie, even to himself. He pushed the file aside and stood. There was one place in the house he had never paid much attention to until last night: the library. Emma didn't want to be the one cleaning the library that afternoon. Normally, she liked that room. It was quiet, lined with shelves and tall windows. Dusty sometimes, forgotten for days at a time. The kind of place you could disappear into. Now it felt like walking into her own brain. The ladder, the shelves, the exact place where her dream had taken place. As she rolled the cleaning cart into the room, she whispered to herself, "It's just a room. It's just a room. It's just a room." "Talking to yourself now?" Helen's voice came from behind her. Emma turned. "I talk to myself so I don't accidentally tell my secrets to anyone else," she said. Helen chuckled and nudged the cart further in. "I'll take the downstairs hallways," Helen said. "You dust the shelves, wipe the tables, then join me downstairs. And if you hear footsteps, fix your face. You're easy to read." "I'm not that obvious," Emma protested. Helen gave her a look. "Emma, if you were a book, you'd be large print." And she left. Emma sighed, grabbed a dust cloth, and moved toward the nearest shelf. The room was big, but not endless. Mostly wood, paper, and silence. The ladder was leaning against one of the taller shelves, exactly like in her dream. She glared at it. "Stay where you are," she muttered to the ladder. "Do not become symbolic." She started on the lower shelves, running the cloth over rows of spines, letting the simple, repetitive motion calm her racing thoughts. After a few minutes, her shoulders relaxed. Her breathing slowed. She was halfway through the section near the windows when she heard it. A soft click of the door. Her heart jumped. Emma straightened immediately, dust cloth still in hand. She didn't turn right away. Maybe it was another maid. Maybe it was Helen coming back. "Emma." The voice said her name like a fact, not a question. She turned. Lucas stood just inside the door, one hand resting on the frame. For a heartbeat, he didn't move. He just looked at her, and at the ladder behind her. And she knew exactly what he was thinking, because she was thinking it too. "Sir," she managed, forcing herself to sound normal. "I'm almost done here. I can leave if you need the room." "I don't need the room," he said. "I needed you." Her grip on the dust cloth tightened. "That's not something bosses usually say to maids," she replied before she could stop herself. One corner of his mouth lifted slightly. "Most bosses aren't me." He closed the door behind him. The sound was quiet, but it echoed in her chest. He walked toward her with slow, steady steps, not rushed, not hesitant, controlled, like everything he did. Emma's feet wanted to move back, but her pride kept them in place. "If you're here to talk about the dream," she started, "I already told you. You told me you wanted me to forget," he said. "I don't plan to." Her heart hammered. "Then why are you here?" "Because last night I listened at a door," he said calmly. "This morning I surprised you at breakfast. Now I want to do something different." "Different how?" He stopped a step away from her, close enough for her to see the faint shadow of stubble along his jaw, close enough to catch the warmth in his eyes beneath all that control. "Now," he said, "I'm going to let you choose." That she hadn't expected. "Choose what?" she whispered. "Whether you walk out of this room and pretend none of this exists," he said, "or stay and admit that it does." She swallowed hard. "You're asking me to... what? Confess?" "I'm asking you to stop lying to yourself." He wasn't raising his voice, but every word landed heavy. "You think I don't see it?" he continued. "The way you freeze when I walk past? The way you avoid looking at me for more than 2 seconds, but then stare when you think I'm not watching?" Emma's cheeks burned. "That's not honesty, remember?" He cut in gently. She shut her mouth. "For months," he said, "I have pretended you're just another name on the staff list. I convinced myself it was better that way. Safer, cleaner. But last night I heard you describe something I haven't let myself think about." Her throat went dry. "The library, my hands on you, my mouth on your neck." She squeezed her eyes shut for a second. Hearing it in his voice was worse and better than the dream. "This is not..." she broke off. "You're my boss. I know exactly who I am," he said. "I also know I would never touch you without your permission." She opened her eyes. "What?" "I don't take what's not offered," he said simply. "Not in business, not in this." She stared at him, trying to reconcile everything she'd been told about Luca Zanetti with the man standing in front of her now. "You don't seem like the type to ask," she said quietly. He held her gaze. "And you don't seem like the type to have dreams like that," he answered. "Yet here we are." Those words hung between them. He lifted one hand, slowly, as if showing her every inch of motion in case she wanted to stop him. His fingers brushed one loose strand of hair away from her cheek, tucking it gently behind her ear. Her breath caught. "That's as far as I go," he said, voice low. "Unless you tell me otherwise." Her chest rose and fell faster now. "Why me?" she whispered. "You could have anyone. Women who fit your world. Who aren't." She glanced down at the dust cloth. "This." He followed her gaze, then looked back at her. "Because they want what I am," he said. "You just wanted to forget I exist." "I failed miserably," she muttered. He almost smiled. "I noticed." He stepped back then, just enough to give her space to breathe. "I won't push you," he said. "Not about this. But I'm not going to pretend anymore either. So when you decide what you want, don't tell Helen, don't tell the walls. Tell me." She stood there, rooted to the spot, watching him. He turned toward the door. "Sir," she called before she could stop herself. He paused, glancing back over his shoulder. "What if I decide I don't want any of this?" she asked. "What if I decide I can't handle your world?" His eyes cooled a little, not with anger, but with something like acceptance. "Then I'll still make sure you leave it in one piece," he said. "That's the only promise I can make." Her chest ached at those words. He left. The door clicked softly behind him. Emma sank down on the nearest chair, dustcloth still clutched in her hand. She had just been told in the quietest way possible that the most dangerous man in the city wanted her and was willing to let her choose whether to step closer or run away. The problem was simple and brutal. She had already stepped closer, at least inside. That night, the house felt different. Security moved with sharper attention. Cars came and went with a tighter pattern. The guards' radios crackled more often. Emma couldn't put her finger on it, but she felt it. Something outside their walls was shifting, and whatever it was, it made Luca's men restless. She was stacking clean plates in the kitchen when Ethan Cole walked in. He usually stayed in the outer parts of the house, near gates and doors, not in the staff's territory. His presence there made Helen straighten immediately. "Evening, ladies," Ethan said, giving them a polite nod. "Evening," Helen replied. "You hungry?" "Always," he said lightly. "But I'll eat later." "Boss wants to tighten the night routine a bit." "Tighten how?" Helen asked. "More cameras online, more cars rotating, fewer blind spots," Ethan said. His tone was casual, but his posture wasn't. "You probably won't notice much. Just don't be alarmed if you see more faces in the gardens tonight." "So, danger?" Helen summarized dryly. "Just caution," Ethan corrected. Then his eyes slid toward Emma. "Oh, and Emma, your name got flagged for extra clearance." Emma blinked. "What does that mean?" "It means," Ethan said, "that if you leave the house, you call one of us first. No more walking to the bus stop alone." Her heart skipped. "I always walk alone." "Not anymore," Ethan said. "Boss's orders." Helen shot Emma a sharp look. "Since when does he know your schedule?" she demanded. Emma swallowed. "Since this morning, apparently." Ethan watched the exchange with quiet interest, then added, "Don't worry, it's not a punishment. Think of it as priority protection." Emma didn't know what to say to that. "Why me?" she asked finally. Ethan's gaze held hers for a moment, then he smiled faintly. "Maybe he likes the way you cut strawberries." Helen nearly choked. "All right, that's enough," she said, flapping a towel at him. "Go guard something. You're making my kitchen nervous." "Yes, ma'am," Ethan said, amused. "Just remember, no one leaves without checking in. Especially you, Emma." He left as quietly as he'd arrived. Helen turned on her with both hands on her hips. "Priority protection?" she repeated. "Do you know what that means?" Emma leaned against the counter, suddenly tired. "It means I gave my heart terrible taste," she said. "It means," Helen corrected, "that to the head of this house, you have just become something someone could use against him. That's not romantic, Emma. That's a target painted on your back." "I didn't ask for that." "I know," Helen said, gentler now, "but it's there." Emma pressed a hand to her chest, like she could feel the invisible mark. "Do you think he's doing it because of the dream?" she asked. "I think he's doing it because of how he looked at you in that dining room," Helen said. "The dream just gave him a reason to stop pretending." Emma didn't answer. She thought of the library, his hand in her hair, the way he stepped back when she didn't move forward, the calm promise in his voice when he said, "I won't touch you unless you tell me." Danger and safety, mixed in a way that made no sense and too much sense at the same time. "Go to bed early," Helen said. "You'll feel better in the morning." "I doubt it," Emma replied. Still, she went. Later that evening, long after most of the staff had disappeared into their rooms, Emma lay awake staring at the ceiling in the small bedroom she shared with another maid who was off that night. The house was quiet. Too quiet. Every little sound stood out. A car engine far away, a door closing, the distant murmur of men talking in some other room she couldn't see. She turned on her side and pulled the thin blanket up to her chin. She could have left, she thought. Months ago, when she first noticed the way her stomach twisted when Luca walked by. She could have asked the agency to move her to another placement. She could have run. She hadn't. And now she wasn't sure if she even wanted to. A knock on the door made her jump. 3 short taps. She sat up, heart pounding. "Emma?" Helen's voice called quietly. "You awake?" Emma opened the door. Helen stood there in her nightrobe, face serious. "The boss wants to see you," Helen said. Emma's stomach dropped. "Now?" "Now." "Did he say why?" Helen shook her head. "Just that you should come to his office, and that you don't need your apron." That last part made Emma's legs feel weak. "I can tell him I couldn't find you," Helen offered. "If you want more time." Emma thought of the library, the choice he'd given her, the protection order through Ethan, the way he told her not to run. She straightened. "No," she said quietly. "I'll go." Helen searched her face for a moment, then nodded. "Keep your head clear," she murmured, "and don't forget who you are just because of who he is." Emma tried to smile. "I'm the girl who cuts strawberries, not the one who belongs in his dreams." Helen squeezed her arm. "Tonight," she said, "we're going to find out if he agrees." Emma stepped into the hallway. The walk to his office felt completely different from every other time she'd passed that door. Back then, it had been just another part of a house that didn't really belong to her. Now it felt like a line. On one side, her old life. On the other, something she didn't have words for yet. Light spilled from under the office door. She stopped in front of it and wiped her damp palms on her uniform. Then she raised her hand and knocked. "Come in," his voice called. She opened the door. Luca was standing by the window, sleeves rolled up, tie gone, top buttons of his shirt undone. The city lights shone behind him, outlining his frame. He turned when she stepped in. For a moment, he just looked at her. No guards, no staff, no Helen. Just them. "Close the door, Emma," he said. She did. Her heart hammered so loudly she was sure he could hear it. "We need to talk," Luca said quietly. "Because after today, I can't keep pretending you're just another maid in this house." The way he said it made it very clear. Whatever happened next would change everything. For him. For her. For the line between their worlds. And Emma wasn't sure which scared her more. The idea that he might hurt her. Or the idea that he might actually mean every word. Emma closed the office door quietly behind her. The sound was soft, but the moment felt enormous. The kind of moment that drew a line in the sand, before and after. Luca stood by the window, hands in his pockets, watching the city lights. He didn't turn right away, and Emma wasn't sure if that helped or made her even more nervous. She had seen him in this room many times before, usually through the corner of her eye while delivering coffee or paperwork. But she had never been called here at night. Never alone. Never like this. When he finally turned toward her, there was no impatience, no anger, just something sharp and focused, like he had been thinking about her for hours. "Come here," he said quietly. Her heart stumbled, but her legs moved on their own. She stepped closer until she stood a few feet away from him, close enough to see the faint tension in his jaw and the shadows under his eyes. He wasn't calm the way he looked. He was holding something back. She clasped her hands in front of her. "You wanted to see me, sir." "Luca," he corrected. She froze. "I told you this morning," he went on. "I'm not pretending anymore, so you don't have to call me sir when it's just the two of us." Her stomach flipped. "Okay," she whispered. He held her gaze for a moment, then walked past her and sat on the edge of the desk, arms crossed loosely. He looked different like this. Not boss-like, not untouchable. A man, not just the head of a dangerous empire. "I've had a long day," he said. "Meetings, reports, threats, the usual." A pause. "But none of that kept my mind away from one thing." Emma swallowed. "My dream." "You," he corrected again. "Not the dream. You." Her breath caught. He said it calmly, but the weight behind his voice hit her like a physical force. "Luca, I never meant—" "I know you didn't." His tone softened. "You're not the type to play games. Not like the people I deal with every day." She looked away. "I shouldn't have told Helen." "You shouldn't have," he agreed. "But I'm glad you did." Her head snapped up. "Why?" "Because I heard it." The heat that shot through her cheeks was instant. He stood again and walked toward her slowly, Not predatory, not rushed. Controlled, careful, like he didn't want to scare her. When he stopped inches in front of her, Emma felt the air shift around them, felt her pulse in her fingertips, felt everything in her body tilt forward. His voice dropped. "Tell me honestly." He raised one hand and touched her chin with just his thumb, lifting her face gently. "Did you want it?" Her voice died in her throat. "Did you want me?" He said softly, "The way you described in that dream." Her pulse hammered so loudly he must have heard it. She didn't know what to say, didn't know what was safe, didn't know how to breathe. But she found her voice. "I don't know," she whispered. He lifted both eyebrows. "Try again." "I don't know what's happening," she said, barely able to meet his eyes. "I'm not used to what you are, or what this is." He lowered his hand from her chin but didn't step back. "What do you think I am?" he asked quietly. She hesitated, then said the truth. "Danger?" Something flickered across his expression. Pain? Guilt? Acceptance? She wasn't sure. "And what else?" he asked. She forced herself to meet his eyes. Intensity, power, focus. Her throat tightened. "Someone people don't say no to." He exhaled, almost a laugh, but not quite. "Except you," he said. Her knees weakened a little. He noticed. He leaned in just an inch, not touching her. "I'm not asking for anything you don't want to give," he said. "I told you in the library, in your dream, that I stop if you tell me to. That hasn't changed. That was a dream," she whispered. "That line wasn't." She froze. He continued, voice calm but weighted. "If you tell me to leave you alone, I will. If you tell me you want space, I'll give it. If you say this is too much, I'll step back." He paused, but his eyes remained locked on hers. "But if you don't say any of that, then you and I need to stop pretending this is nothing." Emma felt something inside her chest pull tight. A mixture of fear, longing, disbelief, and something new she didn't want to name yet. "Luca," she whispered, "people will talk. Helen is already worried. And your men." "My men follow orders," he said simply. "Not rumors. But the staff—" "Emma." His tone softened. "Look at me." She did. His eyes were steady, warm in a way she had never seen. "You're afraid of the wrong danger." She blinked. "What do you mean?" "The danger isn't me wanting you," he said. "The danger is the people outside this house who would use that against me." Her stomach tightened. "Earlier tonight," he continued, "Ethan told me Dixon's men have been watching us more closely. They're pushing boundaries, testing my patience." He stepped slightly closer, not touching, just near enough for her heart to ache at the distance. "And if they find out you matter to me?" His eyes darkened. "That paints a target on your back." Something cold ran through her. "Why would I matter to you?" she whispered. He didn't look away. "Because you do." The honesty in those 3 words nearly unraveled her. "I don't want you near danger," he added quietly. "But I also don't want you far from me." Her breath shook. "But I'm nobody," she whispered. "I'm a maid. You're the only person who doesn't treat me like I'm a weapon." She stared at him, unsure how to respond. He reached up and brushed a loose strand of hair from her cheek. His fingertips barely grazed her skin, gentle, careful, like he was afraid to scare her. "I asked you to come here tonight," he said, "because I need you to know I'm not playing with you. I don't want you confused. I'm not asking for anything physical. I'm asking for honesty." Her chest rose and fell faster now. "You want me to tell you if I like you?" she whispered. "No," he corrected softly. "I want you to stop pretending you don't." Her lips parted, but no words came out. He stepped back finally, giving her space again. "I won't push," he said. "You decide how close or far this goes. But I need to hear something before you leave this room." She swallowed hard. "What?" He looked at her with a rare vulnerability, the kind of honesty she doubted he showed anyone. Tell me if you want me to walk away." Her breath caught. That was the choice, to end this right now, to protect herself, to stay safe, to lie, or to say nothing, and let the danger in. Her voice trembled. I don't know," she whispered. His eyes softened with something like relief. "That's not a no." "It's not a yes either," she rushed. "I don't need a yes," he said. "I just need you to not run." He walked back to his desk and leaned against it again. "You can go," he said quietly. "Think about what you want, but remember what I said." Her heart pounded. "Which part?" "The part where I told you I don't touch you without your permission." She nodded, throat tight. "And the part," he added, "where I'm done pretending you don't affect me." Her pulse jumped. She stepped toward the door, hand shaking slightly as she touched the handle. "Emma." She turned back. His voice lowered. "Don't avoid me tomorrow." She nodded. "I won't." "Good." She opened the door, stepped out and closed it behind her. Then leaned against the wall, breath trembling out of her chest. Because she knew what she had chosen by not saying no. She hadn't asked him to walk away, which meant whether she admitted it aloud or not. She wanted him to stay. But what would happen when Luca realized that wanting her meant putting her directly in the middle of a world built on danger? The answer wasn't far, and someone outside the mansion was already watching. Emma hardly slept. Not because of fear, not because of danger, because of him. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw Luca in his office. Sleeves rolled up, shirt unbuttoned just enough to make her brain short-circuit. Voice calm as he asked her to stop pretending she didn't affect him. "Tell me if you want me to walk away." She hadn't told him, and that meant something. Something big. Something she was no longer sure she could hide from herself. When her alarm rang at 6 a.m., she got up instantly, washed her face, tied her hair, and put on her uniform with hands that wouldn't stop shaking. Helen watched her with suspicion from her bunk across the room. "You didn't sleep," Helen said flatly. "I slept a little." "You're lying." Emma looked at the older woman helplessly. "Everything is too much." Helen sat up. "Did he say something? Did he do something?" "No," Emma said quickly. "Actually, he said the opposite. He told me he wouldn't touch me unless I asked." Helen stared. "That is not what I expected." "Me neither." Helen rubbed her forehead. "So now what?" "I don't know," Emma whispered. "I told him I didn't want him to walk away." Helen froze. "Oh, sweetheart." "I didn't say it out loud," Emma corrected. "But I didn't tell him to leave." "That's the same thing." Emma pressed a hand to her chest. "I don't know what I'm doing." "That makes two of us," Helen muttered. Then she sighed and stood. "Come on." The day won't care about your crisis, and neither will the breakfast schedule. Breakfast felt like a battlefield. Emma carried the tray into the dining room prepared for war, or something like it. But Luca wasn't there. His chair at the head of the table was empty. No guards, no one. She set the tray down slowly. Helen came behind her. "Strange. He's always the first one here." Emma bit her lip. Maybe something happened. Helen gave her a pointed look. "You don't get to worry like a wife yet." Emma almost dropped a spoon. "Helen!" "I said yet," the older woman corrected. "Stop glaring." But a knot tightened in Emma's stomach. In the back office, something had happened. Ethan Cole stood in front of Luca's desk, stiff and tense. "They tested the gate at 5:40 a.m., Ethan reported. 2 men drove up, slowed down, circled twice, then stopped long enough for the cameras to catch the plates. Luca's jaw hardened. Dixon's men? Not directly, but connected. Luca exhaled through his nose, slow and dangerous. "Did they see any staff outside?" he asked. "No," Ethan said. "Security did their job." "Good." His tone was quiet, the kind of quiet that meant something far from calm. Then Ethan hesitated. "There's more." Luca lifted his eyes. A note was left at the back fence. Luca stood so fast his chair rolled back. "What kind of note?" Ethan handed him a sealed plastic bag. Inside was a folded sheet of paper. Luca opened it. Only 6 words were written. "You can't protect everyone you want. For a moment, nothing moved. Then Luca carefully refolded the paper, set it on the desk, and said in a voice so low it chilled the air, "Find them." Ethan nodded. "Already on it. I doubled the guards outside. No one gets near the staff rooms or the kitchen exits without being cleared." Luca's expression didn't soften. It darkened. "Where's Emma?" he asked. "In the dining room," Ethan said. "I'm going." Ethan blocked him gently with a hand on his arm. Something only a man with a death wish or a long history with him would dare to do. "Luca," Ethan said carefully, "you can't storm in there looking angry. She's going to think she caused this." Luca paused. He didn't breathe for 2 seconds. Then, slowly, he stepped back. "You're right," he muttered. Ethan nodded. "Let me handle the perimeter. You keep her calm." Luca straightened his shirt, rolled his sleeves down, adjusted his expression until all the fury was buried under a mask of composure. Then he walked out of the office. Emma was setting napkins when the air shifted. She didn't have to turn around. She felt him. Luca entered the dining room with measured steps. Calm, controlled, unreadable. Yet something in his presence felt sharper today, like a storm held tightly inside his chest. "Good morning," he said. Emma turned, forcing her voice to work. "Good morning, Luca." His eyes softened for a fraction of a second when she corrected herself. Helen, standing in the corner like she owned the place, squinted at him suspiciously. Luca pretended not to notice. He moved to the table, picked up the coffee cup Emma had set for him, and sat down. But instead of drinking, he watched her. Quiet, focused, too focused. Emma fidgeted with a napkin. "Is something wrong?" she asked. "No," he said. "Lie." She saw it instantly. "Luca," she pushed gently. He blinked at the sound of his name in her soft voice. "Nothing you need to worry about," he said. "Not now." Emma stepped closer before she could stop herself. "But you are worried." "It's business," he said. "Not personal." The way he said the last word made her heartbeat throb. She whispered, "Are you sure?" His jaw flexed slightly. "I'm sure," he said, but not with certainty, with control. Before she could ask more, Ethan appeared at the doorway. "Boss," Ethan said, "we need you for 5 minutes." Luca didn't look away from Emma. "Emma," he said quietly, "after breakfast, come to the library." Her breath caught. Helen dropped a spoon. "Why?" Emma asked. "Because I want to talk to you," he replied, "where you'll actually tell me the truth." And he left with Ethan. Helen turned slowly toward Emma. "Oh, sweetheart," she said, "you are in more trouble than I thought." Emma pressed a hand over her heart. "Why the library?" she whispered. Helen sighed. "Because that's where your dream happened, and the man is about as subtle as a brick." But Emma didn't make it to the library, because at 9:12 a.m., as she carried a stack of fresh linens down the hallway, something happened that punched fear straight through her. A shadow moved behind her. A door clicked. A floorboard creaked. She turned. A man she had never seen before stood at the end of the staff hallway. Not a guard, not staff, not one of Luca's men. A stranger. His clothes were dark, but not in the uniform way the guards dressed. His shoes didn't belong in a mansion, and his eyes, they were assessing her like she was a puzzle piece he had just found. He smiled slowly. "You must be Emma." Her blood went cold. Her hands tightened on the linens. I think you're in the wrong part of the house," she said, forcing calm into her voice. "Guests stay upstairs." He took one slow step toward her. "Oh, I know exactly where I am." She backed up. "Who are you?" He didn't answer. She reached for the nearest door handle, but before her fingers touched it, a voice cut through the hallway. Deep, steady, cold enough to freeze the air. "Step away from her." "Luca." He appeared behind the man like he had been carved from the shadows themselves. No guards, no weapons in hand, just silent, focused rage. The stranger didn't turn. "I said," Luca repeated each word controlled, "step away from her." The man's smile faded. He took one step back, not out of fear, Emma realized, but out of calculation. "Relax," the man said lightly. "Just wanted to meet her. The girl who cuts the boss's strawberries." Emma's heart stopped. He knew. Luca's hands curled into fists. "Ethan," Luca said without looking away from the intruder. Ethan appeared so fast it felt like he materialized from thin air. "Yes, boss?" "Remove him." Ethan grabbed the stranger's arm. The man didn't fight. But as Ethan hauled him away, he spoke one last sentence. "She matters. That makes her interesting." Emma's throat closed. Luca stepped forward and took her by the shoulders, carefully but firmly enough to ground her. "Are you hurt?" he asked, voice tight. "No," she whispered. "Did he touch you?" "No." "Did he say anything else to you?" She shook her head, his jaw locked. He closed his eyes once, not out of weakness, but out of restraint, then opened them again, sharper and darker than she'd ever seen. "You're not staying in the staff wing tonight," he said. "Not anymore." "Luca." "I said no." She swallowed. "Where then?" His answer was immediate. "Where I can protect you." Her heart stumbled. "You mean?" "Yes," he said. "My floor." Her breath trembled. This wasn't about romance. Not anymore. This was danger. Real danger. And Emma understood something in that moment. Whatever was building between them wasn't just desire or tension. It was becoming a weakness the outside world had noticed. And in Luca's and Eddie's world, weaknesses got exploited. Or protected. He had chosen protection. But at what cost? Emma didn't realize she was shaking until Luca's hand steadied her. Not tight, not aggressive, just firm enough to make her lungs work again. She had never seen him like that, calm on the surface, but holding back something violent and primal beneath it. A man who could end a life with a single decision, yet touched her like she was a fragile secret he wasn't sure he deserved to handle. "Emma," he said quietly, "you're coming with me." "But the staff wing isn't safe," Luca cut in. "Not tonight." "Luca, I don't want anyone thinking." "Let them think what they want," he said, his voice turning low, final. "Your safety comes first." A tremor ran down her spine. Not fear, not entirely, and that was what terrified her. Because she should have been afraid. A stranger had somehow entered the most secure mansion in the city. He'd found her. He'd spoken her name, but the only thing she could focus on right now was Luca. The way his jaw clenched. The way his chest rose too quickly. The way his eyes kept scanning her face like he had to check she was still there. As if losing her was not an option his mind could even process. "Come with me." He didn't give her time to protest. He took her hand, gently, but with a certainty that made her heartbeat scatter. Emma's fingers fit into his so naturally it felt wrong to pull away. And she didn't. He led her upstairs, past guards positioned at every corner. More guards than she had ever seen on duty indoors. Emma lowered her voice as they climbed the steps. "How did he even get in?" "He didn't get in," Luca said. "He was let in." She froze mid-step. "Meaning?" "Someone on the outside opened the service gate for him," he replied. "Someone who knows this house. Someone who knows the routines." The world tilted slightly. "Does that mean someone is watching the staff?" Luca stopped walking. His hand tightened around hers. "Yes," he said, "and that's why you're not staying downstairs." Emma swallowed hard. "But why me? Why?" "Because he asked for you," Luca interrupted. "By name." Her breath caught. "But how?" "I don't know anything." "You don't have to," he said. "Sometimes hurting someone innocent is the easiest way to shake a man like me." He said it calmly. Too calmly. Emma's heart cracked a little at the idea that someone would use her to reach him, not because she was valuable, but because she mattered to Luca. That thought alone nearly made her legs give out. Luca's private floor was nothing like the rest of the house. It wasn't grand or intimidating. It was quiet, dimly lit, personal, a place he didn't expect anyone else to enter. Ever. When he opened the door to his suite, Emma stayed frozen in the doorway. "You want me here?" she whispered. "For tonight," Luca answered. Yes. His voice didn't carry arrogance, or seduction, or authority. Just sincerity, raw and unpolished. If this makes you uncomfortable, he added, say one word and I'll put guards at your door instead. She shook her head. I don't feel uncomfortable. She only felt dangerously aware of him. The room was warm. A low lamp by the bed cast golden light over a charcoal throw blanket. The sheets were crisp, the air faintly scented with cedar and something clean and masculine. Everything about this space felt like Luca, and she was standing right in the center of it. He closed the door. Slowly. Softly. Then leaned his back against it, watching her like he wasn't sure how close he could get without crossing a line. You're safe here, he said. Because you're here? She asked before thinking. His eyes softened. Yes, he answered. Because I'm here. Her pulse fluttered. She didn't know where to go, so she took a cautious step toward the window. Luca's voice stopped her. Emma. She turned. He moved closer, one measured step, then another, until he stood in front of her, close enough that she could feel the warmth of his body without him touching her. Tell me what you're thinking, he said. She hesitated. Then, I'm scared. He lifted his hand, but not to touch her, just to bring it close enough that she had to make the choice. Her breath trembled. I'm not scared of you, she whispered. I'm scared of what's happening. Only then did his hand touch her cheek. Barely. Softly. Good, Luca murmured, because I'd rather die than be someone you fear. Something broke inside her, and something bloomed too. She leaned into his palm before she could stop herself. It was the smallest motion, but Luca's breath caught like she had just pulled the ground from under his feet. Emma. She didn't know what he was about to say, but the knock on the door cut him off. Luca turned, instantly shifting from man to mafia boss, sharp, controlled, lethal. What? He snapped. Ethan opened the door an inch. Sorry to interrupt, but we found the point of entry. Luca moved toward him. Emma instinctively reached for his sleeve. Be careful. He stopped, looked down at her hand on his arm. Something fierce flashed in his eyes. I will, he said quietly, then lower. Stay here. Don't open this door unless it's me or Ethan. Emma nodded. He stepped out. The door closed, and she was alone, but not for long. 5 minutes passed, then 10. Emma sat on the edge of the sofa, fingers twisting together, mind racing. Every sound from the hallway made her jolt. She stood, paced, sat again. She couldn't shake the memory of the intruder's eyes. You must be Emma. Her stomach twisted. What did he want? Why her? How long had he been watching? She pressed a hand to her chest, then she heard it. Voices in the hall. Luca's. Low, tense. Ethan's. Urgent. She stepped closer to the door, not opening it, just listening. Left the note on purpose, Ethan said. They want you off balance. They got the opposite, Luca replied. Now they have my attention. Luca, they know about her. A pause, a dangerous pause. Then Luca's voice, quieter, darker. I know. Emma's blood went cold. She backed away from the door. They know about her. Know what? That she worked in the house? That she served his coffee? That she swallowed? That she mattered to him? Her breathing hitched. The doorknob turned. Emma spun around as Luca re-entered the room. He shut the door and locked it. Not in a controlling way. In a protective way. They're gone, he said. For now. For now? She echoed. His expression tightened. They won't try the same move twice, but they will try again. She sat down slowly. So, what happens now? Luca walked toward her and crouched in front of her, resting his hands on his knees so he was eye level. What happens now, he said, is that the staff wing goes under full security. And me? You stay close to me. Her heart stopped. That's not appropriate. I don't care, he said simply. She blinked. I'm your employer. You're the woman someone tried to reach today. Emma's voice shook. Because of you. Yes, he said. and he didn't apologize for it. But you didn't do anything, she whispered. Luca exhaled hard through his nose. That doesn't matter, he said. This world doesn't work on fairness. It works on leverage. Leverage? She repeated. You, he said. Her breath caught. I'm not leverage. To me, you're not, Luca murmured. But to them, you're a pressure point, a way to get a reaction. And did it? She whispered. He looked at her with a truth he couldn't hide. Yes, he said softly. It did. Silence thickened between them. Not uncomfortable, not dangerous, just charged. Emma swallowed. So what do you want me to do? Stay where I can see you. That sounds like a threat. It's a request that doesn't give me much choice. Luca's jaw flexed. Emma, you always have a choice with me. She held his gaze. It wasn't entirely true. Not because he controlled her, but because her heart did. Slowly she nodded. Okay. Relief flickered across his face, so brief she wouldn't have caught it if she weren't looking directly at him. He stood, offering her his hand. Come on. You need to rest. Rest? Here? Unless you'd rather sleep terrified in a hallway downstairs, he said. She shook her head quickly. That's what I thought. He guided her toward the large sofa near the window. You take the bed, he said firmly. She stared. No, absolutely not. That's your bed. And tonight it's yours. Where will you sleep? Right here. He pointed to the armchair, where I can hear if you breathe wrong. Her cheeks warmed. That's unnecessary. That's not up to you to decide, he said softly. She opened her mouth to protest, but he stepped closer. Too close. Close enough that she felt his breath when he spoke. Emma, he said, voice low. I need to know you're safe. Her heartbeat fluttered painfully. Okay, she whispered. I'll stay here. He nodded once. A real nod. Not a boss's nod. A man's nod. He turned away, giving her space, giving himself space. Emma walked to the bed slowly, lying down on the very edge like she didn't want to disturb the sheets. She heard the soft sound of Luca settling into the armchair. Silence filled the room. It wasn't awkward. It was intimate. Too intimate. Luca? She whispered in the dark. Yes. Do they know where I sleep? A pause. Then quietly, they do now. Her breath hitched. And does that mean? It means, he said, voice steady but laced with something she couldn't yet name, that until this is over, you don't sleep anywhere except near me. Emma closed her eyes. Her fear didn't disappear, but for the first time since the stranger appeared, she felt something stronger than fear. Protected. She drifted to sleep before she could understand how dangerous that feeling was, because outside the mansion, in the dark beyond the gates, someone else was watching. And they were done waiting. Emma woke before the sun. Not because she was rested. She wasn't. Not because the mansion was quiet. It was never truly quiet. But because something inside her sensed movement. She rolled carefully onto her side and saw Luca exactly where she'd last seen him, in the armchair across the room. But he wasn't asleep. He was watching her, his elbows resting on his knees, his hands clasped, his eyes fixed on her like she was the only person in the world who mattered. When their eyes met, a breath left his chest. You didn't sleep, Emma whispered. He shook his head. Didn't want to. Why? Because I wanted to be awake if you needed anything. Her throat tightened. She didn't know what to say, or what her heart was trying to do inside her chest. But before she could speak, a loud knock echoed down the hallway. Then another, 3 sharp hits, not on Luca's door, but close. Too close. Luca stood immediately, his whole body transforming in one breath from man to mafia boss. Stay here, he said. Don't move. He reached for the gun hidden under the folded blanket near the armchair. Emma's stomach dropped. Gun. This wasn't a drill. This wasn't paranoia. Someone was inside the mansion again. She stood from the bed without thinking. "Luca." He glanced at her, eyes sharp but softening just a fraction. "I said stay. I don't want to stay alone." He hesitated, only a heartbeat, then held out his free hand. "Come here." She stepped across the room and slipped her fingers into his. For a moment they stood together in silence, her breath shaking, his steady. Then, "Behind me," he murmured. He walked to the door, keeping her shielded from view, and opened it only an inch. Ethan stood outside, breath tight, jaw locked. "We have a breach," Ethan said quietly. "South wing, 2 men. They're looking for rooms with closed doors." Emma's blood froze. "They're searching for her," Luca said sharply. "Yes," Ethan confirmed. "We intercepted one. He said she was the message." Emma's knees weakened. Luca's arm shot back instantly, grabbing her waist to steady her. "That's it," he said. "We end this tonight." The plan was simple, dangerously simple. Luca would confront the men inside the mansion. Ethan and the guards would close all exits. And Emma pressed her hand to his chest. "I don't want you going alone." "You're not coming with me. I'm not hiding in your room while you—" "You're not staying alone," he cut in. "You're going somewhere safer." "Where?" He didn't answer. Instead, he grabbed his phone and made a call. "Bring her," he ordered, then ended the call. Emma blinked. "Bring who?" The elevator doors opened. Helen stormed out like a hurricane. "Are you kidding me, Luca?" she snapped. "You're dragging me out of my kitchen for this?" Luca ignored her tone. "Helen, take her to the panic room." Helen froze. "You never use that room." "I'm using it today." Emma shook her head instantly. "No, I don't want—" "It's not up for debate," Luca said. "Luca." He grabbed her face between both hands, gently but with a desperate intensity she had never seen in him. His voice went low, raw. "Emma, listen to me. If something happens to you, I won't survive it." Her heart dropped into her stomach. "You don't mean that." "I do," he said. "You know I do." Ethan cleared his throat. "Boss?" Luca kissed her forehead, fast, firm, trembling. "I'll come back to you," he whispered. "I swear." Then he stepped away. Emma's fingers reached out instinctively. "Luca." He didn't look back. If he did, she knew he wouldn't leave. The panic room was hidden behind a false closet. Helen typed a code Emma couldn't see, and the door opened silently. Emma stared at the small room, steel walls, security screens, a single long bench. "I don't want to be here," Emma whispered. Helen sighed. "Sweetheart, this is where he puts the people he can't afford to lose." Emma's breath caught. "He's different with you," Helen added softly. "I've never seen him like this, not even once." "Why me?" Emma whispered, tears burning. Helen smiled sadly. "Because you walked into his house and weren't afraid to be human." The door began to close. Emma's chest tightened. "Please, don't let it close." "Please, it will open again when he comes for you," Helen promised. "And he will." The door sealed shut, and Emma was alone with her terror. Minutes passed, or hours. She couldn't tell. Voices echoed faintly through the security speakers. Footsteps, shouts, a crash, then a gunshot. Emma's knees buckled. She pressed her hand against the cold metal wall. "Luca, please be okay." Another crash. Then silence. Complete suffocating silence. She gripped the edge of the bench so hard her fingers hurt, and then the code panel beeped. Emma's heart stopped. The door slid open. For a moment all she saw was smoke drifting from the hallway. Then Luca, sweat on his brow, shirt torn at the shoulder, blood on his arm, not his, she hoped, and eyes searching the room with something close to panic. When he saw her, his whole body exhaled at once. He stepped inside, grabbed her, and pulled her against him so hard she gasped. She clung to his shirt, shaking. "You're okay," he whispered into her hair. "You're okay. I told you I'd come back." She pulled away just enough to look at him. "You're hurt." "It's nothing." "Luca." "Emma." He cupped her face. Nothing matters except you. Her eyes filled with tears. I was so scared. I know, he whispered. I was too. She froze. You were scared? His jaw tightened. I've been shot before. I've been hunted before. But today was the first time I thought I could lose something I wasn't ready to live without. Her heart slammed against her ribs. He held her tighter. You listen to me, he said, voice gravel soft. I will protect you, even if it costs me everything I am. Her breath trembled. Why? She whispered. And that was the moment everything inside him broke open. He rested his forehead against hers. Because I'm in love with you. Emma's lungs stopped working. I tried not to be, Luca continued, voice thick. I tried to stay away. I tried to pretend it was nothing. But then a man looked at you today like you were a target, and I realized I would burn the world down before I let anyone touch you. Tears rolled down Emma's cheeks. Not fear, relief. She lifted a shaking hand and touched his jaw. I love you too, she whispered. Luca closed his eyes like the words physically hit him. When he opened them again, they were different, softer, deeper, unguarded in a way she had never seen. He pulled her in and kissed her, not hungry, not demanding, but like someone kissing the only person they had ever trusted. The kind of kiss that made every part of her melt into him. The kind of kiss that felt like a promise. When they finally broke apart, breathless, Luca rested his hands on her waist. This isn't temporary, he said. This isn't something that stops tomorrow. She nodded. I don't want it to stop. Good, he said, brushing his thumb over her cheek. Because you're staying with me, not as a maid. Her breath hitched. Then, as what? Luca stepped closer until his lips brushed her ear. As the woman I'm going to build a life with. Emma's knees nearly gave out. He caught her instantly. You mean that? She whispered. I've never meant anything more. She smiled through her tears. He leaned in and kissed her again, deeper this time, like he'd waited years. And when he finally pulled back, he whispered, Come home with me, Emma. Not as someone I protect, but as someone I choose. She rested her forehead on his chest. I choose you too. Luca exhaled, the first truly peaceful breath she'd seen him take since she met him. He wrapped his arm around her. Then let's go, he murmured. Where? She asked. Wherever you want, as long as it's with me. They walked out of the panic room together, fingers intertwined. For the first time, Emma didn't feel like a maid in a mafia mansion. She felt like someone loved, wanted, safe, exactly where she was meant to be. And Luca Zanetti, feared, respected, unstoppable, walked beside her not as a boss, but as the man who had finally found his weakness and his home. If you enjoy stories like this, take a moment to subscribe to the channel. That's how I'll know you truly liked it. Even if you're watching on your TV, grab a second to join this family of fans who love emotional and heartfelt stories. Your support means everything, and it helps us bring you even more tales like this one.